Hello, fifth graders, Miss Fuad here. In today's lesson, we are going to be looking at how do we start our multiplication problems. Last week, Mrs. Wertigo did a lesson on similar topic. She was showing us how do we choose which numbers we're going to be using. Today, we're going to be looking at what are the first steps to take when we are solving our math problems, our two-digit by two-digit math problems. So let's begin. Let me get out of the way, and here we go. So if I'm looking at a problem, let's say, for example, I want to solve 54 times 48. I'm going to be thinking of different ways that I can solve this problem, or at least what can I do to just start the problem. I know we've been talking a lot about break apart, and one of the things that we could do to kind of start chunking away at this problem is I could always start with 54 times 10. I know we talked about last week with Mrs. Wertigo, if we start at 54 times 10, that's a good starting point because I always know that if I'm multiplying by 10, I'm adding a 0 to the end, moving that place value holder over. So I know that if I multiply 54 times 10, I will have 540. Now, we talked about before that if I know what 54 times 10 is, when I'm using my multiplication cluster problems, that really helps me out and guides me because I can just multiply by double 10, so 20. And if I multiply by double 10, then I know I'm going to be doubling my answer here. So if I want to double 540, I know that doubling 0 is 0 and doubling my 4 is 8 and doubling my 5 is 10. So I know my answer is going to be 1,080. And then I can keep going, right? So if I double that again and I double 20, I get 40. If I double 1,080, well, if I double 1,000, I know I'm going to have 2,000. And if I double 80, 8 plus 8 is 16. So I will have 2,160. Now, if I get to 54 times 40, and I know that this is 2,160, I now have 40 groups of 54. And because I want 48 total groups, I'm only 8 groups away. So now I'm going to multiply 54 times 8. And when I multiply 54 times 8, well, I'm going to have 8 times 4 is 32. I would carry my 3 there, move my 3 over because it's in the 10 spot. So then I do 8 times 5, which would be 40, and then I add that 3. So I'm going to have 432. As I continue going, now I have 54 times 40 is 2,160. I'm now looking at 54 times 8 is 432. So if I just add these groups together, I know that 54 times 48, if I just add these, 0 plus 2 is 2, 6 plus 3 is 9, 1 plus 4 is 5, and 2 plus 0 is 2. So my final answer is 2,592. So that is definitely one way of starting this problem. It's an excellent way of starting the problem. But I also want to look at what are some other possibilities for me to start this particular math problem. Well, if we look at 54 times 48, and we're looking at it using the box method, or the area model, or break apart, or any of the titles that we've been using, I know that I can split my numbers by place value. So 54 over here becomes 50 and 4. And 48 over here, so I'm going to put my 50 and 4 on one side. And then my 48, if I split it by place value, again, I have 40 and 8. So I'll have my 40 right here and my 8 down here. And now, now as I multiply, I'm going to look at 50 times 40 and go from there. So another way of solving this is starting with my numbers broken apart. So 5 and 4, my friendlier numbers are 20. And then I have 2, so here's my 20, and then I have 2 zeros, so that's 2 zeros after that. That makes 2,000. If I continue this route using this strategy, 50 times 8 is going to give me 400, right? My 5 times 8 is 40, and then I add that 0 at the end. 40 times 4, or 4 times 40, is equal to 160, and 4 times 8, again, is 32. Now I'm going to add my totals up. I'll move this over so we can see better. Then I have my 50 times 8 and my 4 times 40 and my 4 times 8. And I can fill in my numbers here. 160 right here and 32. Again, I'm going to add them up to 9, 5, and a 2 right here as well. Okay, these are just 2 examples of how I could start my problem. If I also, one other way to do it, those are 2 examples. One more example is, so in a third way, which would be to say, okay, well, I know that 54 times 10 is 540. I could also look at that and say 54 times 100, because that'll get me a little bit closer than 10, I think. 54 times 100, use my 54, and then of course I have the 2 zeros for the place values. I bring them over here. Now, if I want to look at 54 times 100, tells me that I have 5,400. I can also, instead of doubling this number, I can half it. So half of 100 is 50. So I'm going to take a look at what half of 5,400 is. Well, half of 54 is 27. And I'll add those zeros. Now, 50 is still not 48, right? So when I'm looking at 54 times 48, I still need to take 2 groups of 54 away in order to be at 54 times 48. So if I want to look and take those 2 groups away, 2 groups of 54 is equal to 4 times 2 is 8, and 2 times 5, and 5 times 2 is 10. Now I'm going to subtract, and when I subtract, I'm going to 10 minus 8 is 2, 9 minus 0 is 9, 6 minus 1 is 5, and 2,002 minus 0 is 2. So here I've used 3 different strategies to answer this question of 54 times 48. And if I look at my first step in each of them, here's a first step for this strategy, first step for this strategy, and my first step for this strategy. There are 3 first steps that are going to now guide me in how I'm going to solve the problem. So when you are working on your assignment today, if I pull up your assignment for today, right here, when you look at your problems you're going to be looking at, if this is going to be giving you 3 starter problems, you're going to solve these 3 problems to begin with. So 30 times 20, 40 times 20, and 39 times 10. Once you complete those 3 problems, you're going to decide which one of these you want to use to begin solving 39 times 26. And then below, you're going to write out how you solved it. So again, much like you did here on this problem, right? Much like we did here on this problem, it would basically be like if it gave me 54 times 10, 50 times 40, and 54 times 100. If those were my 3 problems up here, I would then choose one of them to go ahead and solve the rest of the problem. That's what we're going to be doing today, 5th graders. You're going to be completing pages 41 and 42 in your workbooks. We're going to be working on them right here in our slides.